morning, sir.
Good morning, madam. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ravindra Kumar, good morning. Professor Murthy here.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, shall we begin?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. On behalf of Anand Sagar University and Board for IT Education Standards, it's my honor to welcome Dr. Ravindra Kumar, sir, Principal Scientist, TCS Research Labs, Bengaluru. This distinguished guest lecture is on program analysis and synthesis for software engineering tasks. I request Dr. Girisha, sir, from Computer Science and Engineering Department, to please introduce the speaker.
Good morning, one and all. I am Professor Girish, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. It is my privilege to introduce speaker of this session, Dr. Ravindra Kumar, who is a principal scientist at TCS Research Labs, Bengaluru. He has 25 years of experience in the IT industry. He worked as a programmer, designer, and solution architect for large-size global banks and financial institutions before moving on to research. His current research interests include program synthesis, formal specification, mining from source code, application of deep learning to software engineering tasks, and bug detection using static as well as dynamic analysis. He is also interested in fuzz testing and formal verification of programs using dynamic analysis techniques. The testing tool developed by his team won the gold medals in the first software testing competition, TestComp 2019, TestComp 2020, and TestComp 2021, held as part of CAS and FASC conferences. He is speaking today on the subject program analysis and synthesis for software engineering tasks. We welcome you, sir. So over to Dr. Ravindra Kumar, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
First, I would like to apologize. This is supposed to happen on 17th, but due to some personal reasons, I requested for a postponement. Thanks to Dr. Murthy and other organizers of this BITE for giving me this opportunity to speak on some of the work that I do. So today I am going to present some of the work that I do as part of research. Thanks for the great introduction. If you have any questions, maybe you can raise hands, or maybe you can keep it at the to the end of this talk. I try to keep this this talk simple, but there are some slides which are some kind of mathematical in nature, but not so deep. But if you don't understand, don't worry. They are only to illustrate how these techniques work. I try to explain best possible in a possible simple manner. If you have any questions subsequently, you can write to me or contact me on any of this topic or questions on this topic. Okay, with this I'll begin. This topic approximately takes 45 to 50 minutes. Okay, so I mean the organizers can remind me if I am slipping my time. Okay, maybe 10 minutes before. so that I can stop. So my research is predominantly on the to develop formal method based techniques and that are required to analyze, synthesize, verify, and transform large software systems. Okay, especially the systems that involve 3G, third generation and fourth generation languages like Java, C, C++, COBOL, and those kind of languages. Okay, so software is ubiquitous. It is everywhere, be it on the big banks, telecom, manufacturing, healthcare, and also it is on the devices, as small as on the devices on our mission critical application like trains, cars, aeroplanes, and mobiles and TVs. Right? It is everywhere. Formal methods are the techniques, mathematical techniques to specify and develop and verify the software. It is extensively used in mission critical applications such as aerospace, the devices world. The typical difference between in this picture, if you see on the left hand side, all those places where the banks, hospitals, and factories, the software is closely administered. On the devices, software is typically not administered. That once software is deployed, it is on the device, and the device is out in the user's hands, right? So, and they are also mission critical. If something goes wrong in a driverless car, we have seen a lot of catastrophes happen. I mean, similarly in the space shuttles, if something goes wrong in the software, there is a bug, then entire the mission worth of billions of dollars is wasted. So in case of systems which are extremely mission critical, you require above simple guarantees by testing. Okay, because they are no more human administered. They are administered by machines remotely, right? Or administered remotely. They are administered, but administered remotely. So they need to work perfectly. So these formal methods are used to analyze software systems extensively in mission critical applications, network protocols, security applications. Typically, it is based on set theory, logic, automata theory, and process algebra. Of course, a lot of programming and algorithms and data structures. Okay. So before we go into the topic, I'll have to introduce some concepts which you might not have seen. So basically, what is formal modeling and analysis? The terminology that we use extensively in this talk. Okay, the formal models are nothing but abstract representation of something which is in the real world, actual system that we are handling. Okay, be it software, it could be an actuator started by a software, or in general, the models that we are talking is the software models. So models are used to represent the problem. They are used to explore the invented concepts, and also they are also used to communicate with others, the collaborators. If you want to communicate about a system to other researcher, the model representation is the best possible manner, because formal models are well understood by the peers. Otherwise, formal English can, if you write about system in English, there could be several ambiguities. Whereas in the model representation, these ambiguities are typically removed. Why do we do analysis? Analysis is used to find errors at the early stage of the software development. Analysis gives life to the models. Essentially, the models are used during the analysis. So there are two types of typical models. One are what we call structural models, and second is behavioral models. Think of programs are also actually low-level executable models. Okay, because software is itself is an abstraction of real world. So programs that we are executing, they represent something in real world. Okay, if there is a bank account, really there is an account, but there is an abstract representation of that account in the software with some numbers in a database. Okay, similarly your account, your amount, okay, those kind of things. Okay, so the other important terminology that we use is property. It is nothing but an observable characteristic of interest. Properties are specified by users. So in structural model, we are interested in structural properties. For example, if you take an example of this hammer, the structural properties of interest is what is its weight, height, color, and material type used, and how much, what kind of nails it can handle. Behavioral models are represented more using safety and temporal properties. So a temporal property example is when a hammer hits a nail with a velocity u, the nail moves at a penetrates an amount of x, is something like a temporal property. So specifications essentially capture user requirements, both functional and non-functional. So these are the terminologies that we use. So essentially we have specifications and their property that specify specifications that describe the systems and some properties of the system as well. And we have actual system, implemented system. Then given these two, so there are these questions. Okay, what properties hold on this system? Does the system hold a given property? Can I create a specification for a given system from a given system? Can I create a system for a given specification? These are some of the questions that are of interest in various various parts of the software development lifecycle. Okay, so the subject that deals with what properties hold on a system is program analysis. Does the system hold a given property or not is dealt by this topic called program verification. Can I create specification of a given system is specification mining. Can I create a system for a given specification automatically? Can I create, today humans do this, but can machine do this? Can it create automatically the system if you give the specification? That is the program synthesis. Okay. Today I'm going to talk about two topics, program analysis and program synthesis, and how they are used. I'll try to show you a use case how we use in large software systems. I'm not going to explain these principles here because they are vast topics, but I'll try to show you how we use that in industry, what kind of tools that we develop using that. Okay. So first I will talk about how we use program analysis to, actually program analysis is used in the specification mining. So I will show you a use case where how program analysis is used for inferring the specification from the implementation. So this is the application of a formal methods in reverse engineering. So give me 1 minute. Sorry. So imagine that there is a banking system program. This is a batch program. It's called account posting, which post when you do transactions, they are batched, and at the end of the day, they are all posted onto your account. While you don't see this in the front end, but this is what actually happens in the back end in the night in most of the systems. Okay, so these systems take account database and the transactions in a given, of a given day, and it actually outputs, updates the several databases and emit various files for subsequent day to ATMs and other outgoing systems. And this system has several functionality. It does customer management, that is change of name, address, phone number and all, and account management, where update balances, fund transfers, which is like our transfer of money, fund transfer reservation, and a transaction posting, account blocking, credit adjustment, debit adjustment, interest accruals, reports, reconciliation, end of day positioning. All these are functionality that I can explain, but whole talk will go in this. But these are some of the functionalities, and typically in good olden days, large legacy systems handle all these during the night in batches, and during day the transactions are collected and posted. Even most modern systems also follow this philosophy, though it appears as if it is a real thing to you, but in reality, actually the system of records are typically created overnight in a batch process in most of the MNCs, okay, MNC systems. So one of the key requirement is how these systems grown over a period of time. How do I refactor and rearrange this application in most modern architecture? So for that, we need to untangle this application and arrange into various clusters, be it account maintenance and update, in-house payment processing, outgoing payment processing. So all the functionality related to account will go into this block, are expected to go in this block. All incoming transaction payment processing part will go into this block. All the outgoing payment process is expected to go here, out payment processing, and reports are everywhere. So this is what we wanted, the target architecture look like. Now, these programs are the software systems that we are talking is in multi-million lines of code, or if not, some of these programs themselves that I have seen runs in thousands, hundreds of thousands of lines. They are not TIE programs, okay? Typically, they run in 1 lakh line, 2 lakh lines, and understanding them and actually identifying these functionalities in an interleaving setting is non-trivial. I will show you, okay, typically assume that this program is something like this complex, okay? It is very simple flowchart representation. It is much more complex. And if I map the functionality of each of these, these blocks, they map to these parts of this program. Now, what I want is, let us say I want what is the functionality of account management. So this portion of the program does all the processing related to account management. Okay. Now, given the question that I am interested is, okay, given this entire program, I say if I want to know what is happening with account management, can it go and mark whatever these red lines automatically that are marked here, and say, or extract a program and say this program is related to account management. Okay, how do we do that automatically? Remember, today humans do this with great difficulty. My objective is to do this automatically. So I'll demonstrate one technique how we do this more automatically. Okay, so essentially the key question is, as I mentioned here, how do I automatically identify the portion of the program? Before actually explaining the technique, I have to introduce something slightly formal method. The reason why I chose this formal method is this directly shows how some of the concepts that you learn, I would imagine most of the audience here are the faculty and some senior students. So I wanted to demonstrate how some of the theory that you are learning in automata and all, how we can use in practical analysis setting like this. So typically here I am showing an example of a payment file, okay, that comes into a bank. What this payment file is describing is an example file. It typically has each row in this is a record, and so there are 3 types of records. which is identified by this type field here. Okay, the type field header here identifies what type of record. If it is HDR, that means it is a header record. Item means it is a payment record. Trailer means trailer of that batch. And then there is a new header starts. And then there are items and a trailer. This is an example of a salary payment where what is happening is a company which want to pay the salaries to its employees send to the bank a big payment file where this account is a company account from which this amount need to be debited. Okay, and all these accounts, okay, need to be credited with their salary. Imagine these are salaries. So this amount is debited, these amounts are credited. So the sum of these amounts should be equal to. And this SRC same indicates that these accounts, okay, is also in the same bank as the payers account. Similarly, this is another batch within the same file where the amount need to be debited is 4,000. It need to be credited in this account, but this account is in the different bank. So what is the difference? When it debited this account, since the accounts are in the same bank, it will simply credit in those accounts. In this case, the payment need to go out to the other bank. So that is the difference. So first of all, this is the physical file. Now, for me to do the analysis, remember the analysis that I am talking about is I'm not going to execute the programs. I analyze the programs without executing them. That is called static analysis. So I need some kind of representation to this file, abstract representation. Here is a representation. Okay. So I first define something called record type. So a record type S header means I call a S header record when the type field contains HDR and a SRC field contains same. When a record type is called item, when the type is item, trailer, it is trailer. D header is when the type is HDR and the source field contains diff. Then such record types are defined. Just this is like your data structures. If you see, you have a struct type, right? So they are like this record type is the struct type kind of thing where it satisfies these conditions. Okay, but now this entire file, I can represent more like a sequence of this S header item trailer, S header item TRL, D header item TRL, TRL record sequence. Okay, but the problem is this representation is not just enough, but I also need to capture this sequence. This sequence is generally represented by, okay, an automata. Okay, what this automata is capturing is all legitimate sequence of files that can be described in this way. Okay, any out of sequence, for example, a file that contains S header S followed by S header followed by trailer is not accepted in this automata. Therefore, that is not a legitimate file. Why? Because it is a duplicate header. Okay, I hope this concept is clear. Similarly, so this automata, what it captures all the legitimate sequence of the records that can present in a file. Okay, so this is how we use, this is one use of automata, and subsequently I show how this is useful. So now with this record types and this automata completely describes the model of this file, such not one file, the family of these files. Okay, particularly this file is, in this file the type sequence is S header item trailer, D header item trailer, and a file. If you run this sequence on this automata, okay, it will go through this, all this path that I'm showing here, item trailer and end of file. So it's a legitimate sequence. So it is, the file is said to be legitimate, okay, or well-formed file. A file that satisfies both these constraints is called well-formed file. Okay, So key question and idea is, what is our objective? What portion of the program is relevant for a given functionality? Remember, 2 minutes back, I showed you a diagram where I wanted to find out what portion of the program related to account management. So what is our observation? How it is related to this automaton that I have shown? So in batch programs, the functionality related queries can be asked using a restricted version of input file format. What is input file format? Input file format is nothing but description of this record types, and the automata is called input file format. Okay. So file format specifications are generally available in organization. For example, if you take Swift protocol, or if you use your fund transfer in a bank, there is a protocol in which these payments are packed and sent to the other bank. So those formats are well established. For example, RBI says this is a format in which you need to communicate the payment. So they are available, these formats, and those formats can be abstracted and create these kind of specifications. Now we can use this to answer this query. So I will demonstrate that quickly, how that can be done. So before we go further, I define something called a specialized automaton. A specialization automaton is a sub-automaton of a file format automaton. File format automaton is the one that I have shown you previously. A specialized automaton is a sub-automaton of it that accepts a subset of files accepted by the file automaton. Okay, I will quickly show you an example. For the program that I have shown previously in that flow chart, the input specification automaton is something like this. It is very complicated. I am not going to explain what it is, every piece of it. But what is interesting is the account management part is a sub-automaton. The one that are marked here is a sub-automaton of this automaton. So the only files that contain account management queries follow this type sequences, okay, in that full automaton accepted by the program. Remember, program is not accepting the automaton. The files that conform to this automaton are processed by the program. So only records that satisfy these type sequences are related to account management functionality. Now, the question is, what portion of the program is reachable if I run this automaton, okay, in the code? That is the question. So similarly, so this is what portion of the account posting program is reachable if the input file conforms to account management specialization automaton. If I solve this problem, then it will automatically give me the statements that are reachable or related to account management. I hope the idea is clear. Now, this is done using something called program specialization. It is a technique. So imagine that there is a program specializer tool, which this tool takes input as a big program like what I have shown and a specialization automaton. It automatically emits specialized program. What is specialized program? Only program related to account management. Okay. So this tool emits that program automatically. Remember, the input is the big program and specialized automaton. Output is another program which is only related to the automaton. So this is some work that we have done and published in 2015 in a conference. Okay. Now, I mean, similarly, credit adjustment is related to this portion of the automaton. Okay. Now the specialized program for this looks like this. So previously the account management related specialized program is all those marked in that purple color. Here it is this blue color. So I go through this approach. This is slightly involved. Even if you lost, don't worry about it. But I will try to keep it very simple. Okay. Imagine that there is a program. What this program is doing is So initially it is reading from a file. There is a flag set to 0. It is reading a input record. Each time it read a input file, it get a record. Okay. Remember the records that I have shown some time back, that header, item, trailer. Assume that each read gives you that record. It will first check whether the input file is file is reached an end of file. If it reached an end of file, it closes the program. Otherwise, it will check the record type is item record, then it will go through this branch. If record type is header, it will go through this portion of processing. If the record type is trailer, it will go through this. If it is none of this, remember that is an error, right? Because the types are expected to be only header, type is either header or item or trailer. Anything else means it is a wrong file. So it will go through error handling process, and once again it read next record, and this loop goes till end of file happens. Okay, I hope this program is clear. What it is doing is it is processing in each of this. Whenever it sees this type of record, the relevant processing, taking the corresponding fields like receiving, account, amount, and do something for that item processing. Now, the file that this program is written to process the files that conform to this automaton, and the record types are like this. Now, suppose I am interested only the portions of the program that process records that are related to same bank. You remember I put two things, payment that is in-house payment. That means all the receivers of the payment accounts are also within the same bank, and some receivers accounts are in the other bank. I am interested in this program. What is the processing related to in-house payments? Are the payments where receiver accounts are within the bank? Remember, they are batched separately. So this automaton, above automaton, is a specialized automaton that represents this. Now, if I can find out the portions of program that is related to this automaton, then my job is done. So let us see how I do this. Okay. Now I execute my technique. When I say I here, I have a technique. Imagine that I have an abstract machine that I developed that does not read the input, but it reads the abstract input. What is that abstract input? It has two values. One is this automaton state. Second is the values to these variables within the program. Okay. Values to these variables. This T here represents, I don't know what is the values of all variables at the beginning. That's what it means. I don't know anything in the beginning. So these two cells represents the automaton and values of the variables. Okay. Now, as I said, this is not a concrete execution. Concrete execution means real file, real program, you execute it. I'm not really executing real program with real input. I am abstract. I have an abstract interpreter. Okay, I have an interpreter which I built myself, where I'm executing the program using this abstract inputs. So initially the input is starting state and unknown values to the variable. Now, after first step, remember I know SF is assigned to 0. So I'm still in state QS. SF, this field is assigned to 0. So SF value gets 0. The top goes and it is replaced by this. Now, the next step is read. When read happens, you remember when the read happens, the record type is read. What is the record type? S header. And the state machine moves to QSH now upon reading the S header, right? So I know under what condition this moves to this QH. What is the condition? Type equal to header. Where does this come from? Because it says S. Upon looking at the S header, it moves. What is the S header constraints? The type should be header and SRC field should contain same. And of course, SF equal to 0, which came from here. This green dots here says that I reached when I execute the program execute, when I say execute, remember this is abstract execution. These statements are reached. So this, okay. Now, obviously with this end of input file, that end of input file flag is, since we have read, we have not seen end of file, that will be false. So it goes to the false. But the type equal to header, so this condition evaluates to false, and this condition here evaluates to true. Remember, I am marking all the statements that I am reaching as in the execution progresses. Okay. But if you see SRC is same, there are two statements here. SRC is same. If it is not same, it will go through this. If it is same, it goes through this. So since it is same, it goes through this statement, and it will update SF here to 1 now. Okay, now it will go back and it read next record. Now it moves the automate and it says, okay, my type is item. Type is no more header. And I also don't know what is the account type. Record type is item, but SRC field is, I don't know whether it is same or diff. It is only item, SF is 1. Now with this, if I execute, remember previously there is a QSH and header and SRC is same. Now that has come from the top. Remember, this is in QI. I can't club both of them, two different inputs. So I need to now carry both of them. Okay. Now if I carry both of them, so they get executed in different route. Okay. The previous one go through this once again. When QSH goes through via the same route that I have shown previously, but now I am showing the execution with QI because I have already shown QSH. Okay. Now they combine and come here. Okay, now automaton, once again, either it can move to QI or QT. So here I am taking the QT route. Okay, then what happens? Then I have QSH, QI, QT. Okay, then it will execute this. And after the execution of QT, all this, it will reach end of file. And at that time, these are the values of the variables, the bottom portions, and top portions are the, under these states, these are the values for the variables. Okay, this is abstract execution. Okay, and now all those statements which does not have this green symbol are not reachable under this execution. So they can be knocked off. Okay, they can be removed. So this is now specialized program for S header or the same header processing. Okay. Now we can further optimize and remove some branches and further optimize it. Okay. I just wanted to check, am I audible or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You're audible.
Okay. So this is the abstract execution and how this is specialized. Now this program is specialized for the processing of all payments where receivers belongs to the same bank. Okay. Similarly, if we are interested in process portion of the program that is relevant to the payments processed by the other banks, these statements go away and the rest of statements remain. Okay, by same execution. So this is called specialization program. I hope you understand this. Okay, with this, my application of program analysis to infer specification or specialized program is completed. Now I am moving to the topic of program synthesis for data transformation. I will explain what the problem is. So data transformation is essentially it appears in several places in enterprise applications, particularly when you want to integrate the applications, or when you want to take the data from transactional systems and put it into business intelligence or analytics applications, or during the data migration. The data transformation is important. What is data transformation? It is simple. Given let us assume that you have a system A, which has a database model, system set of tables and fields, and it contains some data. And the same functionality, take for example a bank. Bank wants to move its system from one product, okay, that banking core banking application. Take bank like SBI or ICICI, they have a core banking application which maintain their accounts and payments and everything. Imagine that they want to move on to some other application for a better user experience or a functionality or whatever. Obviously the data in the old system and new system, the data models are not same. They change dramatically depending on what the customer, what the product is designed or the new system designers design. However, as a user, because your bank changed their system, you don't expect it to have a downtime. You are freshly capture your data from the scratch. Your data need to be moved from old system to the new system. You keep on seeing the message, our system is under maintenance, please bear with us. So those outages are basically to move your data from old system to the new system. So obviously that is called data migration. So that exercise of moving, changing the data shape and values to fit into a target is called data transformation. Suppose your banks and data in previous example, I showed you a file which has header, item, trailer. That's a format. Suppose the new bank only accepts XML format values of form of that. You need to change that file into an XML. That's called data transformation. Now, you won't believe in IT industry, service industry particularly, around large portion, 40 to 50% of the work is about data transformations. Even if you do machine learning applications, you write 80% of the data scientist work job is actually data transformation. They have data coming in some form. They need to combine, cleanse, crunch the data to acceptable by the model. So that's called data transformation. Now the people write these data transformation programs using Python and all those stuff. Okay, I'm interested more on data migration. I will show you. So typically in data migration, what will happen is you have a source data model, which is outgoing systems data model, and a target data model is incoming target systems data model. So there are experts who sit together and field by field, they create a mapping of the source data model to target data model. Why do they need to do that? They need to know how the existing system data should be moved. The actual table data need to be moved into target data model. So they identify table and field correspondence, and they also identify the transformation rules. What are these transformation rules? For example, in the old system, you have entire name is represented as name. In the new system, you have a first name and last name. Now you need to split the name into first name and last name in new system. Okay. So you require rules to say, okay, this part of this name is first name, this portion of the name is the second last name. So you require a small program or a rule to how to divide that. Then there are tools like what they call ETL tools, extract transform rules, where they deploy these transformation rules on that and give the source data to that. These ETL tools create the target data and validate if the validate whether that data, transformed data is valid or not. And if it is valid, it is deployed onto the production environment. What is deployment means? It run on the source data and the target data is generated and loaded onto target system so that target system become operational. If the validation fails, it will, that means there is a wrong mapping. So the mapping, mapping review happens and this whole cycle repeats. Now the question is, this whole thing, if you see, is a very human intensive. Only part is, the most difficult are 50% to 80% of the time actually spent by analysts is in identifying the mapping and transformation rules. And this is fairly once they, and also then they code that transformation rules onto this transform engine. This is all done by humans today. Okay, then it is automatic, in the sense these programs run and create the data. But this portion is fully manual even today. And believe me, this takes anywhere between 12 to 18 months. Okay, it's huge cost. Okay, to make it very concrete, imagine in the old system, the data model is like this. You have two tables, T100 and T150. On the new system, target system, I have a policy and policy detail. Now, what, don't worry about what are these fields. The table correspondent says, okay, this policy number goes into the Paul underscore number goes to policy number. Plan name goes into this policy product code. Okay, remember there is no resemblance of this at all. So humans will identify, oh, this plan name is policy product name. How do they identify? They have domain knowledge to do all this. Okay, this is not enough. Okay, but our question is, the first question that we are interested is, can we automatically infer these matches? Okay, that means can machine do this rather than human? Today humans do this. The second problem is, remember, once we have these correspondences, we also need rules. These rules are mini programs, right? The programs like this. Now, remember, they are as simple as null or concatenate Paul with this policy number to get into policy number field, to very complex like join this and this table on a particular field, then filter it on some value, and then all the values grouped by this policy number. It could be as complex as that. Remember, each field has one transformation program, which is what we call transformation rule, but essentially it's a program. Okay, SQL program, if you want to think in that terms. Okay, the other question is, can machines automatically, rather than today humans write it, can machines write automatically such programs? This area is called program synthesis. Program synthesis is an automatic technique to learn programs in a programming language as per the specification provided by the user. It is not new. It is well known in 1957 itself. Don't worry about all these formulations. But it is very, very hard problem. And for a long time, people have no solution, or the solution, very expensive solution, and not understandable by even high experts. There are solutions, complexities, but they are very, very complex. They are only on paper. They are not implemented. But things have dramatically changed in last 1.5 decades. Now it is more or less kind of feasible to do these kind of things automatically. That means machines can write programs. Okay, how do the techniques that do this is called program synthesis techniques. They search. It's a kind of search of programs. So the search space is restricted by formulating this logic formula here, which you don't need to understand, into a first order search. And once it comes into first order search, there are several techniques that formal method people have developed. So some techniques to restrict this search spaces by using sketches and templates, or Oracle guided or syntax guided. Okay, remember, I will show you an example, quick example. Remember, we are not interested in any program, but we wanted to synthesize the program, the best program. Okay, I'll show what it means. Suppose there is this book called Hacker's Delight. Somebody wanted this. Okay, they wanted, the program specification is like this. I want a bit vector transformation that resets the rightmost substring of contiguous ones to 0. Okay, these are bit vectors. That means the inputs are only bits, 10, 10, 10 bits. Okay, they're a vector of bits. So the specification is all rightmost contiguous ones need to be set to 0. The specification itself is so hard to understand for us. Okay, so what they are asking is P should be constructed from a standard bit vector operations. So the other restriction is you can't use any operator that you are interested in standard programming language. You can only operate bit operations like bit or bit and bit not, bit plus and left shift, right shift, 0 and 1. instead of giving this English-like specification, let us say user gives the input-output example. He says, okay, if I give you 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, I want rightmost be one is contiguous, one is 1 here. So set that to 0. Look at this third example, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. Rightmost contiguous ones are, these two are the rightmost contiguous ones. So set them to 0, 0. Okay, this is what the user wants. Instead of this, let us say user wants this example. Idea is, can machine come up with automatically a program? Just think of this is non-trivial program, and the restriction is you have to use only operators in your programming language is only this. Okay. Now, remember, this is the desired. Remember, this is the program given by a synthesizer. The machine come up with this program, and this is indeed correct program. Remember, I can write a program if 0, 1, 0, 1, then emit output 0, 1, 0, 0. If else, if input is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, this one, emit this. If input is this, emit that. But such a solution is very specific. It's called overfitting. It won't know if I give all ones. It doesn't know how it has to give triple zeros. But whereas this is most generalized program. This is what I mean by any program, but the program. The program is most generalized program. Okay. Perhaps if you can take this program and on these inputs, if you do, you get these examples. How machine come up with this is called program synthesis. So in the interest of time, I will skip this. This is what our automation approach. Now, what I'm trying to say is we use this technology to automatically infer transformation programs. So that's what our one of our research is. Okay. So in the interest of time, okay, there are different synthesis algorithms. One is called deductive or top-down approach. Second is called inductive, which means it is like your mathematical induction. You are given set of samples. Can I create a theorem and say, okay, theorem is nothing but sequence of steps. Can I come up with a sequence of steps, which is nothing but a program? So can I infer the program? Okay. There are several techniques in this called enumerative search, constraint solver, type directed solvers, version space algebra. These are all advanced techniques. And there is a logical technique for synthesis called inductive logic programming, or meta-interpretive learning is an advancement of inductive logic programming, which you will learn. These are all some kind of AI techniques, okay? Advanced artificial intelligence techniques. Of course, combined with a lot of, you require extensive program languages knowledge, not the programming language that you think of, but it is how program languages are constructed, their semantics, what the program means, the behavior, how do I specify behavior? You need to know some of those things. But my objective is only to introduce there are such things exist today in the research world, which you will learn if you go into higher studies in this space. Okay, how do we make use of the synthesis for data transformation? We use machine learning techniques to identify field level matchings, that arrows that I showed you some time back, and use that matching and a small sample of input output examples provided by the user. And using programming synthesis techniques, we infer the transformation programs. So that's how we solve that, intended to solve the data transformation program. It's an ongoing research. Okay. So in summary, what in this 50 minutes talk, what I have done is I introduced formal methods for analyzing, verifying, and synthesizing programs. I demonstrated the program analysis techniques to specialized programs to untangle large batch programs, and demonstrated use of program synthesis techniques to infer the data transformation rules. So with this, I conclude my talk. If you have any questions, you can raise hands, you can ask, or you can post it in Q&A.
Yes, sir, we have a couple of questions. The first question is by a student, Sumit. So what is this approach? What happens if the records are duplicated? In the input file formal specification, how is duplicate records handled is a question asked by a student.
No, in the real program or in the abstract program? In the real program, I hope you might have seen the programs generally. So if the specifications are generally correct, but if you look at, if the records are duplicated, there is a check generally I omitted here. Okay, remember this automaton is a specification. There are enough checks are built in the program to see, for example, a header followed by header. Okay, then it will, this flag will have already there will be a flag which says that header has seen previously. Okay, I have omitted that in this example program. That will be checked. Suppose if you set that header is already seen and you come once again with another header, that is a duplicate header, it says, okay, it's a duplicate processing, it will jump onto error handling. Okay, it will call error handling and throw it out. Okay, our automaton is also, if it finds the duplicate header, it will go into that error processing. For example, if you want to find all the error processing code, you can set up illogical an error state from here, extend the automata to error state and find that this block is the part of the program, error handling program. Okay. So similar checks are built. I have not shown that in this program here.
Yes.
For simplicity.
Yes, thank you, sir. So
and that flag, see, it is like simple flag. You assume like SF equal to 0, there is a header scene flag equal to 0. When header is processed, it will be set to 1. And once again it comes, there will be a check here. If it is already header scene equal to 1, then through error processing. When you see trailer, that header scene flag is set to 0. Okay, that way it will know correctly how to follow that sequence. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, good question.
Yes, sir, we have one more question from another student. What steps needs to be followed usually when evaluating new programs or systems? Sir, actually these children have finite automata and formal languages. They study during their 5th or 6th semester.
Right.
Both computer science and engineering and computer science and technology.
Right.
So the 5th sem children are studying finite automata and formal languages.
Right.
So Suchitra has a question.
So
what steps need to be followed usually when evaluating new programs or systems?
If I understand her question correctly, what are the steps that generally how
to evaluate a new program or a system?
So evaluation has two evaluations. Typically, what followed in the practice is actually, of course, the standard methodology to evaluate is you have user give the requirements. Okay, from the requirements, users write the test cases, and so the test cases are built, and when the system is built, the developers, from the requirements, write functional specifications, then low level specifications. There is a high level, from the functional specification they derive high level specifications or high level design documents and low level design documents. At each of these steps, the corresponding test cases are built. When the low level specifications are written, low level test cases are built, and when the software system programs are written, these programs are tested against these the test cases are written. If there are bugs found, they are fixed or reported, and this goes all the while back to the user requirements. When the system is getting integrated, finally the users will do user acceptance testing, and the system does not meet the user specification. How do users come up with these user acceptance test cases? Because they have specification from which they manually write these user acceptance test cases, and they do the testing. If the system does not meet those requirements, they say the software has a fault. This is a standard technique, and testing is always always definitely required. But the techniques that I have mentioned here is also a kind of validation. Since you said evaluation, I am interpreting it as verification, validation. So testing is a validation mechanism. The technique that I have mentioned in my talk in the beginning, the formal, there are verification techniques, models, and I talked about program verification. It's another, does the system hold a given property? So this can be checked, and in the mission critical applications like aerospace and medical devices, where mission critical, where the absolute guarantee of correctness of the software is required. Software cannot deviate from the specification at any cost. If it imagine that the driverless car is going, and if it does not meet the specification, it may you might have read in the papers, it went and hit a person, okay, because it is unable to meet some part of the specification. The specification is not correctly translated to the software. The software has bug. How do you actually guarantee such correctness? Their testing alone is not enough. What we do is this program verification. So in such a mission critical applications, we do verification. Remember, why don't we do this everywhere? Because it is very, very expensive. To give an example, suppose it is not easy to write these specification for verification, because these specifications are not in English, they are in mathematics. These specifications need to be written in logic, and there are very few people who can, you require a lot of expertise to write them. And there is always a joke. I mean, for example, to verify a program of 3000 lines, your specification will be 8000 lines. Okay, it will be like that. Okay, formal specification. You can read about it. So that's why it is very costly. But suppose you are spending a $2 billion on a space machine, and where you have, once it goes, that rocket into the space, you have, if there is a fault and you cannot fix it, and the space shuttle may, all the way, it happened actually, several catastrophes happened, right, due to software bugs. You can go and read that. So in those cases, people are willing to spend that much money to formally verify. Okay. Otherwise, testing is a standard methodology to evaluate. There are several automated techniques, testing techniques. If there is another opportunity, I talk about it, which is what the TestCom thing that I mentioned in my my introduction.
Yes.
I hope
Yes.
this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much, sir. So this was indeed a wonderful session on using formal methods for mission critical systems. Basically, if we look at aerospace and medical field, as you rightly mentioned, that writing formal specifications is a niche area where expertise is lagging. It's a unique opportunity for educational organizations to train children on being able to write such formal specifications. You took a very beautiful example of legacy banking system. It's modern architecture, a use case on inferring the specification from the input, from the implementation. You went in a very detailed way, starting from the basic terminologies and explaining it. So a lot of our participants were students, so they found it very easy to understand, mostly because they're also learning finite automata and formal languages in the theory. So thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a wonderful session. We look forward to more sessions from you. I request Dr. Girisha sir to please give a few remarks, sir. I think Dr. Girisha sir is on mute. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we look forward to your more sessions to this, and very nicely told. There's a lot of research opportunity in the field of formal methods, and it really is nice that we can look at it at a very different direction, on a research-oriented way, on teaching formal methods, formal automata, and formal languages, which is more so on a theoretical approach now where we cover concepts like regular expressions and languages, context-free grammars and languages, properties, Turing machine. These are some of the concepts that which these children study as part of their curriculum with a set of lab experiments. But yes, this gives us a lot of opportunities to explore open-ended experiments or problem statements that can be given to students for them to think out of the box and come up with simple solutions to problems.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thanks a lot. I'm really thankful that I'm given this opportunity to interact with various students. Yeah, I'm generally interested in, as a researcher, to interact with students, and also, also keen if some of the faculty are interested to execute some projects. I would be happy to collaborate on some of these projects, final year projects, to identify problem or guide students. Of course, given the bandwidth that I can take. I'm actually doing that with a couple of universities right now, but I can actually, I'm more keen on helping and collaborating with faculty as well if there isn't some interest in the areas, in these kind of areas.
Sure, sir. Yes, sir. I'll discuss with my higher authorities, sir.
Right.
And beginning with simple experiments which you can give to us that we can make the children do execute here, open-ended experiments which will be part of their credits. And of course, PhD. We also have DSU offers a PhD, grants PhD degree. So we have PhD scholars here.
Right.
Dr. M.K. Banga sir is the Dean Research. So I'll also have a discussion with all of them and
right. Yeah.
yes.
Good.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
I'm
much.
interested in collaborating with people, faculty and guide students.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Have a
Thanks.
nice
Good
day.
night.
Thank you.
You too. Bye. Thanks.